Today we will be covering a very interesting topic on psychology. Let's understand the foundation of psychology under the course code BPCC 131, Block 1. This is very important question, what is psychology? So let's see what is given in detail in Unit 1 as Introduction of Psychology. When it comes to our mind about the word psychology, it directly comes that it is a study of science. It is study of knowledge. It is something related with the minds. It is something related which actually to know about the behavior. There are very mixed approaches. Let's understand about that and let's see what is what our study material tells about, and we get the knowledge out of it. Psychology is derived from a word, two Greek words. First is psyche and other is logos. Psyche means soul. It is all about the study of life, study of soul. And logos means knowledge. It also relates with the explanation of study of the soul. So when we combinedly see a word psychology as per these terms, it is a study of life, it is a knowledge of life, the explanation of study and the knowledge of life about the soul, about the life. The word psychology also comes from a Latin word that is psychologia. It was in 16th century when it derived the word psychology from this term, but it was later on popularized by German in early 18th century by one of the very great philosopher, Christian Wolff. One of the most influential early users of the term in English was Herbert Spencer, who published the first volume of his Principles of Psychology in 1870. So psychologists prefer using the word mind rather than soul. So before 18th century, it was termed to be as a study of soul. Later on, after 18th century, the soul word changes to another word that is mind. Because when we talk about the psychology, it is all about the study of mind, as on today's study, and the knowledge of behavior, knowledge of the mind, what is actually going on, what are our thought process, what we are thinking about. So psychology is one of the last social sciences that separated from philosophy in the 19th century. So the psychology was initially a part of philosophical science. Later on, it was known to be as a special science, a different field altogether. Before it was a part of philosophical studies. There are certain definitions. There are many, definitions, but combinedly, one of the well-known and the best explained definition is by Morgan, King, and Robinson in 1984. He said psychology is the science of behavior and mental process. If you see this particular term, so it is said that psychology is a science. Why psychology is termed as a science? Because it is, when we say science, the first thing comes in our mind about the rational thinking, about the systematic studies, about the logical. So science is, psychology is science because it is systematically tries to gather the data by carefully observing people, observing and recording events or behaviors of humans and animals under some controlled experimental conditions. This measurement of behavior is an objective as possible in psychology. The knowledge which is gained by collecting the data with the help of experiments and other methods of observations is then applied to solve. So when we say science, other word comes parallelly is experimentation. So when we are saying experimentation, it is data collection, observations, recording, and then solving the problem or maybe getting the results out of that. So psychology also, follow all these steps. In further slides, we'll discuss about the steps, how to really collect the data and what are the other methods. The term behavior is the next term. It is given in the definition is behavior. This term implies the overt actions and reactions. So whenever there is an action, if whatever be the action is called to be as a behavior. Whenever any human being or any animal uh, they react, or that can be recorded, and that particular reaction is a behavior. It may be in terms of emotions, it may be termed as actions, it may be termed as thoughts, or maybe the attitudes. So overall, this is what we call as maybe if a child is crying, so due to bad behavior of their friends, so that reaction is a behavior of a child. That is the action which is reacted as from the action given by the or by the attitude or the behavior by their friends. The other term is mental process. Mental process refers to covert or internal processes such as thinking, feeling, or remembering. Psychology is a science that seeks to understand and predict human and animal behavior. So overall, we can say that it is all about what we are thinking. It's all about a systematic way of thought processes uh, in which we are, also reacting. We are, you know, working out, or maybe we are giving some thought process, or maybe whatever we are feeling, that is the behavior. Whenever we are feeling or we are thinking, that comes under a term which is given as mental process. The other term, other definition given by American Psychological Association, that psychology is a study of mind and behavior. Mind is all about what is going on in our mind, what is the internal process, and how we react. The discipline embraces all aspects of human experiences, from the function of brain to the actions of nations, from child development to care for the aged. In every conceivable setting, from scientific research centers of mental health care services, the understanding of behavior is the enterprise of psychologists. So overall, when we say psychology is from the day one a child born, from the child development to the mental health issues or mental health care services for the old age people, or it's a discipline which actually embrace every step of our life, every age of our life, from the development part to the social part, and of course to the mental issues also. The psychology is originated from two primary disciplines. First is epistemology and second is physiology. Epistemology is a branch of philosophy which is concerned with knowledge, and physiology is a branch of biology that studies the bodily function. Epistemology refers to when what we are thinking about, what's the thought process, what is our knowledge base, how good we are in, and physiology is what can be the reaction of that particular mental process or the inner feelings. The term epistemology comes from Greek, that is episteme, that is knowledge, and logos is discourse. Early psychology, the very early psychology studies that combined with mental philosophy, physiology, and physics. Each research, whether it is mental or philosophy or physiology or physics, it is focused with mind-body relationship, mind, body, and physical relationship. Whatever is going in our mind, it somehow comes in our physical reactions. So it is known to be as mind-body physical relationships. Psychology emerged as science through experimental behavior laboratories. How we are behaving, what can be the effects of that, what are the relations, what is the associations of certain behaviors, and why we are behaving in such specific or maybe some emotions comes out of some actions, that is through some experimental groups or experimental laboratories were seen. Scientific contribution to psychology is, there are certain psychologists, they are very known psychologists who come up with a scientific approach. Initially, it was Charles Darwin who came with theory of evolution. Isaac Newton, who who gave us physical laws. Dmitri Mendeleev gave us periodic table. But the growth and expansion comes from a social, cultural, and interpersonal aspects of human behavior. How people are socially connected with each other, what are their behaviors towards each other, how they are culturally connected with each other, and how they are culturally and socially also sometimes dependent on each other. What can be the behavior, how they are behaving in some specific situations, and what can be the interpersonal aspects of their behavior when they are in the social settings. So there are different theoretical orientations emerge out of it. That is, physiological psychologists. Physiological psychologists are those people who focus on nervous and glandular systems, whereas the social psychologists studied the social behavior and interaction between the human beings, how to know about how they behave in some specific social settings, what can be the behavior of people in the given situations. Sometimes it is in a controlled situations, or sometimes it is in random situations. So psychology is a natural science in that way. It is natural monism, which relates to reducing phenomena in simplest part. When it comes to the operationism, it is validity depends on procedures used, and determinism is behavior explained by heredity and environment. So natural monism or a reductionism relates with when a concept or a context is reduced to simple parts, or maybe bifurcated in simple terms, then it to make people understand, to make the study more easy to understand. And whereas the operationism refers to the systematic process, systematic procedures which is given, because when we are saying it is science, so science relates with the specific steps and procedures, whereas the determinism is a behavior explained, because it is a study of behavior, study of human mind, and how, what they know, how they know, why they are doing this, and also this is all about the behavior. And this is explained by it sometimes comes with a heredity, and sometimes it comes with a environment or in which they are living, in which they are grown up. So these are the three main determinants why it is said that psychology is a natural science. Not only it is bifurcated or maybe to cut down into the simple form, but also follows the steps as, or the process as the science or the rational thinking is there, plus the behaviorism studies. So when we say psychology is a social science, when it comes to the social science, there are three main things which comes under, that is through experimental methods. In social science, it employs scientific observations and control, and quantitative and statistical analysis. There is no rigid assumptions of designing or interpreting studies. When it comes to the experimental methods is when we are experimenting on some specific group. Scientific observation is about observation and under the controlled situations, and recording that particular observations, and further analysis through some statistical methods, or quantify that particular behavior is relates with quantitative analysis. So, use of empirical research. When it comes to the empirical research, empirical research means when we are gathering, we are collecting the data through observation and experiments. The control variables allowed for replication. It emphasizes on systematic and objective analysis. Data is quantified to study behavior and predict behavior. Whatever data is collected through experimentation or by observation people, so that data is quantified. That data is, put it in numbers when we say in a layman language, and then that quantified data is further analysis, further systematically work it out, to further and further research focused areas or in under some controlled situations. There are certain importance of theories which is given where the theories which are developed by the psychologist help to predict the behavior. Sometimes the theory guides research and vice versa. Otherwise, not only theory guide the research, but sometimes the research also gives the new theories. Emergence of qualitative methods. Quantitative research has become important alongside qualitative approaches. Offer deeper insights into subjective and contextual aspects of behavior. So theories are not only as a concept, not only as a context to know, to give the just a theoretical knowledge, just to give a knowledge out of it, but also it helps to do further research. It helps theory helps to move towards not only for the quantitative data but also qualitative data has become important in this. But there is also a vice versa where the theory not only leads to research. Sometimes the research is done in such a scientific way that it gives a new theory altogether. So it is. It's not only relates with a contextual approach, but it gives that deeper insight knowledge about the concept, that particular context, and the subjective matter. There are two approaches. First is nomothetic approach. Nomothetic approach relates to its main goal is to establish general laws and principles that apply to all individuals. So there are certain principles, there are certain laws which are applicable to all the individuals, irrespective of the age, irrespective of the conditions or the program condition, whether they are in the controlled group or they are in the experimental group. So its main focus is on the commonalities among people, not individual difference. So in nomothetic approach, we generally see what is common among the people. What is the common behavior of people in some specific situation. So we record that, we analyze that. The methodology is ideal when there are large sample sizes. It employs experiments, surveys, and quantitative analysis. The data is collected from representative samples of the population. So sample from a large population or for a large sample sizes, there are some representative samples, maybe in form of clusters or on geographical areas. The representative samples are collected and then it is used as a study of the entire large population. So when we say commonalities or generalizations, it is all about predicting the behavior based on statistical finding. For example, personality tests like Big Five, IQ testing, or behavioral experiments are done. these are few tests which are used as normative approach. So it is said that the people, it has seen in some behaviors that a person, if he or she got the good marks in a school or college, they are in a happiness, they are in a happy mood, they are happy, or they are overwhelmed with their emotions. So this is the common behavior which is seen among the human behavior. Or maybe in case of any moment where in the loss of a family member or loss of some dear ones, the people, the emotions are known to be as a sad moments or sad emotions or crying, or even they feel stressed out of that. So there are few common behaviors which are predicted out of the situations, and also we generalize based on the statistical findings. So these are a few examples, and the tests are given as 16 PF or Big 5 IQ testing. The other approach is ideographic approach. Ideographic approach is to understand the uniqueness of the individual for a specific event. The main goal is to understand how a person is, what can be the behavior of a person in some specific situations. The main focus is on individual subjective experiences and personal context, whereas in normative approach it is on a generalization. But ideographic refers to the individual experiences, and it is very relates with the personal context. So the methodology used here is of case studies, interviews, diaries, and qualitative methods like interviewing people is one of the qualitative method which is primarily used for, or interviews also sometimes to get the deeper insights on the open-ended questions, or maybe the prompt questions are asked from them, then it is further analyzed on that. So focus on deep and detailed analysis of single subject or a case. Case studies is well used in every area when it comes to the ideographic approach, where how a person behaves in when for example, an organization is getting into loss, and how a person or an owner or an entrepreneur works behave in that particular situation, how they can be able to take it that situation further, whether they are stressed or they are with the attitude of that it happens when you run a business, there are some risk factors and all. So it depends on the individual. The studies depends on the individual behavior. So these these are become the case studies for the further research. So main goal or main aim is to get a rich and holistic understanding of one's person's psychological world. There are a lot of examples which can be seen at the workplaces, at the individual situations. Fluid psychoanalytical case studies and in-depth therapy sessions are the few of the examples where a person is known, and the discussions moves on how they really behave in what particular psychic situations. Or maybe, for example, a child at a school, how they behave, when they are not attaining a good marks, or maybe whether they are stressed, or sometimes the child get demotivated, they don't want to study further, or maybe other child who also got the same low marks, but he or she is self-motivated, or they they have that urge of or doing the things in a better way in further exams. So there are a few, these are the individual uniqueness of that particular child behavior, how they are behaving in that particular situation. So this is an ideographic approach. So overall, when we compare these approaches, the nomenclatic approach relates with general laws, whereas the ideographic approach relates with uniqueness, the unique individual cases. In nomenclatic approach, it is large and the representative samples are taken from the large populations, whereas the ideographic approach is comparatively small, and sometimes it is often with a single individual, because here we are seeing a specific unique behavior of individuals in specific situations given. In nomenclatic approach, primarily quantitative method is used, and ideographic, it is more of qualitative, where we are getting into the interviewing and inside the in-depth interviews are the case studies, whereas quantitative is all about taking the surveys or doing the experiments, or maybe through questionnaires, or maybe surveys can also be done verbally or in written way. This objective of nomenclatic approach is predicting and generalizing behavior, whereas ideographic approach relates with understanding the personal experiences, understanding the person, about how they are behaving in given situations. The use of nomenclatic approach is on scientific psychology, whereas an ideography relates with clinical and humanistic approach or humanistic psychology, where the human behavior is studied individually. So the therapy sessions or maybe the interventions which are required on an individual level can be referred on humanitarian grounds as well. For example, in case of finding out the stress level, and then recommendations can be done to give the therapy sessions where how they can be able to de-stress themselves, and what can be the therapies they need to do. Apart from that, what diet or how the social circle has to be maintained by them. So these are few examples where it is given on an individual context or to a very personal level context. The psychologists who who gave fantastic studies, who worked on different psychological concepts, and different areas where they worked in is first is structuralism, which is mainly given by William Wounded and Edward B. Tinchter. Their main study was on the basic elements, that's on the structure of mental experience using introspection. Introspection is when they are studying the behavior of human beings or animals, how they are behaving. They work on what is the structure of those experiences, what is the mental process of that particular experience. Second is William James, who gave the functionalism, which is focused on how the mind help individuals focus in real life, how the people behave in the real life situations, how they can be able to deal in that particular situations. The other main components, our school of psychology is psychoanalysis, where the analysis is done on the childhood experiences or unconscious mind. That is given by Sigmund Freud, where the main when we say analysis, it is an adult, how they are behaving. Sometimes it depends on how was their childhood experiences. For example, a person comes with a very anger issues. So under the psychoanalysis, it is the emphasis is done on how was their child behavior, whether they brought up in a situation where the anger was very dominant in the in a house, or maybe among the parents, or maybe they have seen the domestic violence, or maybe any related issues. So when these analysis is done, or maybe a person is in an unconscious mind, and then this comes out with the emotions, or maybe speak about that is analysis, and then those issues can be treated, or those issues can be further recommend for the further medication or therapies, whatever is required. The further one very important is Gestalt approach, Gestalt theory. That is all about perception. Perception is more than the sum of parts. That is given by Kurt Kofta, Max Whitmer, and Wolfgang Kohler. So here the perception, how the people are seeing the thing, what is their views, how they are seeing the things, that is very important, because that creates a kind of their brain and their mental process and their thought process. That perception leads to the action, and then to the further thought processes. So overall perception is more important, and it is more than some of the parts. So behaviorism refers to the observable behavior only, because here we are only focused when we get with the studies of Pavlov, or B.S. Skinner, or John B. Watson. We only study about the behavior, how they are behaving, what is their behavior towards the particular situations, why they are behaving, and how they are behaving is being studied. And the emphasis is mainly on behavior, irrespective of what was their past and how they are working in that particular situation, how they are behaving, that is being observed, that is being, and certain studies which we will do it in further blocks and further context. Next is humanistic approach. Humanistic school of psychology refers to humanism, where it stresses free will and self-actualization, given by Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, which relates with the motivations, which relates with how we can deal with our own motivation, and what can be the levels of motivation, where we can be able to reach the self-actualization of our own, what are the steps, and how we can be able to stress out. Important in School of Psychology, there are certain other schools which are given by psychologists Herman Ebbinghaus and Sir Frederick Bartlett and Jean Piaget. That is cognitive psychology. Cognitive psychology refers to the memory, it refers to the mental processes, it refers to the thought processes, how we are thinking. When we say memory, how the long-term, short-term, and working memory works. So here the focus is more on the mental processes. How it actually, what are the process of brain, how they actually works, and how the thought process work, how it aligned with our other processes. So that is studied, and that cognitive thinking processes is given by the Jean Piaget and Herman Ebbinghaus and Sir Frederick Bartlett. The socio-cultural, as the name itself is self-explanatory. It relates to the social and cultural context, how the social the environment helps to shape the behavior of particular people. That is given by Fritz Heider, Leon Festinger, and Stanley Satcher. The how the society helps, how the people around a person helps to create a behavior, or how they are behaving. For example, if a person is stressed, so how the social or the cultural factors sometimes are also im- they are the factors which may comes a person when it comes to stress. So their own cultural background, sometimes they are very stressful. If they are not, for example, if a person is not convinced with some social factors, or maybe the cultural factors or cultural happenings around, the person can be stressed, and it may give a shape of a person as a rebellion, or maybe into, it may conclude to, it may result to anger issues also, or maybe a person with who is always in an angry mood, who is not very acceptable sometimes by the societies also. So this is an example. Then there are certain biological behaviors which is influenced by biology, by DNAs, by genes, by hormones. That is given by Charles Darwin. And here it is seen that there are certain behaviors which comes with the genes. Sometimes we say a child is behaving as the same as a father is or a mother is, or maybe it's not only by behavior of biology. It is also sometimes not from the direct genes, but also from the a way the forefathers also behaved, and also that is all brain. It is also some of the diseases are or maybe the behavior functions are through the genes. It is commonly observed that how the way the mother is behaving in some specific situation, the daughters also behave in that particular social situations. So this behavior is adopted by, sometimes by the brain functioning, or by observing, or sometimes by the genes also. The way they looks like, the way they behave, it's sometimes very similar to the child behavior, is similar to the father behavior. Like eating habits, or maybe sitting postures, or maybe walking. These are few generic behavior which is very commonly seen among the children, and it was studied by Charles Darwin. The another school of study in psychology is evolutionary, where it explores the evolutionary basis of behavior, how it behaves, and what can be the further analysis or further evolution of some specific behavior. David Bucks and Devendra Singh worked on this evolutionary school of psychology. Overall, we have seen some important schools, that is evolutionary, biology, cognitive, social, cultural, behaviorism, humanistic, psychoanalysis, Gestalt, structuralism, and functionalism school of psychology. Based on these schools, the fields of psychology is cognitive psychology, which refers to the psychology of mind, the thought, the process, the memory, and all. Clinical psychology relates with when we are starting on the clinical, diagnosis of particular behavior, or maybe particular, the syndromes. maybe for example Down syndrome or ADHD or maybe the learning disabilities comes under clinical psychology. Counseling psychology is mainly towards the behavior, where it can be the behaviors can be rectified, or it can be gets into sessions where counseling is required, where the behavior can be changed as given by as instructed by the counselors. The environment psychology relates with the environment, what's happening around, what is actually how the environment help or to build up a personality of a person. School psychology refers to the school children psychology, what can be the issues happen in the school life, and how it can be used, how the psychology can be used in at the school level at that particular age group of students. Education psychology relates with the education or the system or the way of teaching or way of studying the subjects. Experimental psychology relates with experimentation on certain behavior in a controlled situation, or maybe on a on some controlled group as well in a given situations. Physiological psychology relates with the physiques. It relates with how the person behaves, or how the person behave in in that particular situation. What can be the physical behavior of that person when it how they are working, or how they are physically behaving in that particular situations. For example, if a person is stressed, sometimes they really shout so much, or they started throwing the things, or this is one of the physical reaction what they do when they are stressed, or maybe some other person who is also stressed but they are calm, they are just sitting, they are just quiet, and that is also another reaction which comes out of that. So dealing with all these situations where the physiology is included, that is physiological psychology. Organizational psychology is all about when the study of human behavior is at the workplace. For example, knowing about the employee engagement or organizational commitments or job satisfaction and all. Social psychology is the study of where the human behavior is studied in the social settings. It is seen that the person sometimes behaves in a social setting in a very different manner as they are, behaving when they are, at the home, or they have a different attitude and different behavior when they are at the social functions, or maybe at the workplace, or maybe at anywhere where the socially they are connected with each other. Development psychology refers to the lifespan. It refers to the development of the people, or the developmental behavior of the people. Community psychology refers to the psychology where the behavior is observed, or the behavior is studied within a community or within specific groups. Sports psychology refers to the study of human behavior who are into the sports, how they are behaving and how they should be behave when they are playing, or when they are even not playing, when they how they have to really work in the teams, and how they have to really work or behave when they are outperforming, or maybe a study of behavior when they are not performing. Health psychology refers to the health issues. For example, the diabetic or maybe the heart issues, if there is any health issues with specific person, how they really behave, what can be the behavior of a person. So if that study relates and that branch relates with health psychology. Forensic psychology is relates with when it comes to identifying the DNA in the criminal cases, or maybe to finding out the fingerprints, or it is very commonly seen as and maybe the person who are from the criminal background and how they behave and how they really act in that particular situations. That is all about forensics. It is not about only finding out the DNAs or fingerprints. It's all about how they are behaving in that particular situations, how criminals behave in a particular when they commit some some crime, or when they, so what can be the behavior, what can be the psychology behind that. So psychology is not limited to only it's a myth, it is a general perception that it is relates with only with mind or people who are not are stressed, or something related with brain or mental. It is in every field of life, whether it is from the school to education to health to to hospitals. It is used at schools, at hospitals, at schools, at colleges, at workplace, at sports ground, at clinics. um, so psychology is so varied that it is the behaviors are analyzed at different spaces, at different places, in different specific and even at the different situations. So that study, if it gets into a very insight study of that particular behavior in that particular situation, that becomes a field of psychology. So some of that is given in this list, and maybe it is not exhaustive. And I think there are a lot of other fields also where the behaviors can be studied. So when we say research, when we say research psychology, so first is risk description. Description is when the psychologist is concerned with observing behavior. The focus is on describing what is happening, where it is happening, whom it is happens, and what is the context in that event happened. That is all about the description when we get into the research of that particular area. Then it comes to the explanation. Explanation refers to when the psychologist, based on observations, tries to explain the phenomenon, and the theory will emerge out of that on the basis of that observations, which itself explain the facts. Prediction is aligning, it is concerned with changing or modifying behavior. If we do this, then this will happen. If we control a person at a very childhood, on a anger issue, so probably a person will get into a very calm and very calm behavior as an when he or she will be an adult. So it is all about the prediction when we are concerned with modifying that specific behavior. Control is a step where when it is we are modifying behavior from an undesirable to desirable one. So these are the 4 steps which is very common in the research psychology, because here the explanation is very important and the description is very important, because it is the core of the research psychology, where the insight, in-depth information is required for the further process in when we are into the predicting and controlling stage. So the steps which involves is first is problem, identifying the problem when it comes to start a research. If you are curious about any understanding a very interesting phenomenon and to which you want to find an explanation, so that is a problem. A researcher has to create a problems or to find out, identify the problem statement. A researcher might be interested in studying whether exposure to more screen time, whether it is mobile or computer or television, whatever be, it makes children vulnerable to unattentiveness and decrease in school performance. So this is one example where researchers wanted may find that for example, a number of hours of a screen time leads to children's behavior. If the screen time is more, and the school performance will be down. So here we are relating the problem of screen time, this problem of hours of screen time among the children with their school performance. So the hypothesis is generated when the questions are followed. When we test the fundamental to any scientific investigation. If in this example, if the child increased screen time, they have a low school performance. So this is hypothesis. And then we test that hypothesis. Testing of hypothesis depends on the research design. What is our research design? What method we are using? And it also depends on collecting the data and interpreting that data and get the explanation out of that. So interpretation of that results, interpretation of that particular data is very important. Then only we comes to a conclusion. So this results are obtained, and with the hypothesis, it is whether the hypothesis can be rejected or it can be accepted. So hypotheses are also in, it is whether it is null hypothesis or it is alternate hypothesis. There are two types of hypothesis which we will see in further blocks. But just for the understanding, to test the hypothesis or to find out the answers of those questions which we assume or we make an assumption. So to find out those explanation, we need the data to work it out. That data is further interpreted and further concluded to some specific conclusion. Then very important is how we are reporting that results, how we are reporting that analysis part. Reporting is equally important because the way we interpret how we are documenting that results, and probably it can be used for the further research, or maybe it will become a theory itself. So overall, the generic or the common steps which every researcher follows is identifying the problems, creating a hypothesis, collection of the data, interpretation of the data. Collection of data involves the testing of hypothesis and the conclusion and reporting of that analyzed data. So this analysis of data further gives a scope of study and further investigation, and the knowledge can be added by the other researchers. So this has to be in a very synchronized and very aligned manner so that the further research on that particular topic, for example, here the example we have taken that in more screen time relates to low school performance. Further research can be how many hours of screen time for school children is idle for school performance, or maybe for a higher performance, or maybe more screen time when we get into the the not only the behavior but also when we wanted to get into the clinical way, clinical psychology, how they are, how it is effects on the brain, how the brain cells really behave, or how the brain cells really deteriorate, or are they really becoming smarter, or they are deteriorating their brain cells. So it all depends on the further study. So basic research, whatever is a researcher is doing, that has to be very aligned, that has to be very concluded, and the reporting has to be very clear. So basically, in descriptive method, there are three ways. Either we do it by case studies, we do it by surveys, or we do it by systematic observation. Case study, where we pick up any specific case or of an individual observation. Surveys can be done on through questionnaires, and the systematic observation is through the observation of people when they are how they are behaving in that particular situations. So the experimental method, we'll discuss on experiment method and correlation method. The experimental method is a scientific study where we study the cause and effect of relationship by manipulating the variables in controlled condition. If this happens, this will be the result. So there is always a effect of every cause. So to find out that particular cause-effect relationship, we do the experimental method. Here we have independent variable, dependent variable, controlled group, and groups. Independent variable, that is manipulative. Dependent variable, which is we are measuring. The control group is which does not receive the experimental treatment, and experimental group is where we receive the treatment. For example, in some specific age group, we are finding out the screen time of children. The screen time can be independent variable, and school performance is a dependent variable. So if we are doing in some specific school, it is a controlled behavior, or maybe when we are doing randomly, it can be an experimental group. So formulating the hypothesis, we have to identify which is independent variable and dependent variable. Then we select the participants, we assign the group, we manipulate, then we measure the independent dependent variable, we analyze the results, and we draw the conclusion. So the study, for example, the effect of sleep on memory performance. Here the sleep is independent behavior, and memory performance is dependent behavior. And if we are doing for some specific group, that can be a controlled behavior. If we are doing randomly, that can be an experimental. So the other method is correlation method, where we are finding out the relationship between two or more variables. To find out the relationship exists, and if so, what extent to what direction. The main purpose of this is whether the first thing is whether the relationship exists or not. If there is any relationship, what can be the to what extent it is if there is a relationship. There is types of correlation, that is positive correlation and negative correlation. Both variables increase or decrease together. More study hours, higher grades. More and higher. These are the two variables. If we study more, we'll get more grades. So this is when both the variables, independent and dependent variable, both the variables are, or maybe there is a correlation between. There exists a positive correlation between them. The negative correlation example is when there is more stress, there is low sleep. So here the stress is one variable and sleep is another variable, where it is when one variable increases and other variable decreases, or vice versa, then it is a negative correlation. And if there is no relationship, then it is known as zero correlation. Shoe size and intelligence is nothing to do with that. So there is no correlation between a shoe size and whether a person is intelligent or not. So the correlation ranges from -1 to 0.1. It is a correlation coefficient. When it is inclined towards +1, then it is positive, perfect positive correlation. When it is -1, it is perfect negative correlation. And when the relationship comes to the 0, then it is zero correlation. The tools used are statisticals like Pearson correlation, which is based on the collective. We can find out the correlation analysis. There are certain softwares which helps to find out the statistical analysis like SPSS, or we can do it on the simple Access also. So there are many softwares, but this is the commonly used. There is no causation. There is no cause. We are not finding out the cause and effect relationship. We are here to find out the relationship between the two, variables. For example, ice cream sales and drowning rates may both increase in summers, but one doesn't cause the other. So this is not a cause-effect relationship, but yes, we are finding out the correlationship between the two variables. Now, psychology in India is very vast. It comes with a Western influence, but in India it is largely shaped by Western theories. But here also the models and teaching has done. Dalal in 2010 noted that early Indian psychology did not integrate insights from Indian scriptures and philosophical exist. The early beginning when the first university was constructed in University of Calcutta in 1916. Then Sir Vijendranath Seal in 1905 he come up with the concepts. Dr. N.N. Sengupta, he was a Harvard scholar, was the first psychology faculty in India. There were certain psychological roots which comes from a philosophical background of the Indian culture. The post-psychoanalysis was done by Giridhar Shekhar Bose, the first president of Indian Psychoanalytic Society in 1922. It integrated Indian thought and Freudian theory in 1921, and the thesis came out as a concept of repression. The psychology education was of course started with University of Calcutta, but later on with Mysore University. Then in 1924, Indian Psychology Association (IPA) was formed. Indian Journal of Psychology is one of the reputed journal in psychological studies. Aligarh Muslim University, the psychology started study in 1932. Madras University, then in University of Delhi, started masters in 1957, and Allahabad University and Bangalore. So there are certain psychological assessments and modern approach. The key journals were also mentioned. Major associations: IPA, IPCA, IACP, Indian National Academy of Psychology and all. So overall, we have done the scientific study on the human behavior to understand and address the roots of philosophy, fields of psychology, and what are the different methods, what are the steps to do the research in psychology. So thank you so much. Namaste for today. I'll see you in the next session.